Frank. You always have this naughty streak in you, don't you? You can't help it. No, that's very true. And I love what I'm doing. When you love what you're doing, then it really, sleep isn't that important. There are nights like tonight, I don't think I'll be sleeping much. But there are nights like that. It happens once or so a week. But it's just a pleasure. I am in a very good space. At my age, I'm absolutely fulfilled in what I'm doing. There was a stage where I was not fulfilled in what I'm doing. And this really, what I'm doing now is very, very fulfilling. So I'm extremely privileged to be in this position. And then sleep isn't important. Right, let us start. Thank you very much, Frank. Thank you, everybody, for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. It's my pleasure to be with you this evening and then also tomorrow afternoon. Now, basically, what we're going to be doing this evening is I'm going to give you a bit of a background of the development of cell phone evangelism. And then we'll talk later with the second half tonight. We will talk about the crossroads that we are at, the turning point that we find ourselves at, individually and as a congregation and as an online group and as a conference, as a union, as a division and as a worldwide church. Then tomorrow afternoon, I'll be talking about branding, which is vitally important. And then I will be doing the most important aspect is the how to do discussion on how to become a very effective cell phone evangelist. This is very exciting. There's nothing more exciting than using modern technology to reach people that otherwise you would never have been able to reach. We live in wonderful times. And with approximately 2,600 satellites hovering around above the Earth's crust, between 100 and 140 kilometers above the Earth's crust, we are in a position that we've never been in before. When you phone somebody on the other side of the globe using WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram, 5 seconds later, maximum, it rings on that side. That's because we are connected digitally around the world, and this has never happened before. And then SpaceX has received another contract for about 8,000 satellites that will be launching the next few years. So the connectivity that we find ourselves in is really remarkable. And this is why cell phone evangelism is so effective, is because digitally everything is in place. Now, approximately 8-9 years ago, I was invited to go and preach in northern Namibia, and I flew up and lived with my colleague. We were at the seminary together, Neville Neefling, who has a guest house in Otjiwarongo. And I stayed with him the Friday evening, and the Sabbath morning we got into his motor car and we drove the 80 kilometers north to where I was going to preach. And in the car, we were just discussing different possibilities, et cetera, and we decided as a group of 3 people, that is Neville, his wife Renette, and myself, to start an online group, just like you have done, to reach those people who are not in a church at the moment, or, and many of you are in a church, but or those who have left the church and we don't know where they are, et cetera. So the 3 of us decided, well, let's do it. And WhatsApp had just come onto the market 3 years before that. And we thought, well, the only way to do this is I live 2,000 kilometers away in Roodepoort, Johannesburg. We will get together via WhatsApp, and the 3 of us will pray together every morning. So we prayed, Lord, send us people. Secondly, we made ourselves available. And thirdly, we said, Lord, we are listening to your leading. And using WhatsApp and getting together every morning at 5 o'clock, and we're still doing this 9 years later, we very quickly, within a week or so, 2 people joined us, and within about 4, 5, 6 weeks, we had 70 odd people on the group. And most of those people were people that we lost contact with completely. We never knew where they just disappeared to. They just came out of the woodwork and joined the group. Well, it is really phenomenal what happened, because at head office, that is Adventist World Radio, heard of this and contacted us and spoke to Neville and myself. And over the telephone, Dwayne McKee, the president of Adventist World Radio, gave us $5,000. He actually gave us his credit card and he said, go and buy what you need, because we needed microphones, we needed decent laptops to do the recordings and send them out, etc., etc. 3 months later, Neville was invited to Washington. And there on the 19th to the 22nd of September 2017, he was grilled by the directors of Adventist World Radio. What is him and Gideon doing in Southern Africa, etc., etc. And they were so thrilled, being a radio station with 1,100 radio stations around the world, being radio people, they were so thrilled that they'd met somebody like Neville, who was for 17 years head of the religious radio department in Namibia, Southwest Africa, Namibia, for 17 years. Well, they were very excited about this and decided to roll this out to the 13 divisions as quickly as possible, and to all 80,000 churches and 70,000 home groups around the world as quickly as possible. There was an urgency with them, because they realized the exact words were, you know, we have everything at our disposal. When people come to our congregations around the world, we hand out Steps to Christ or Desire of Ages or The Great Controversy. We invite them to stop smoking plans. We have revelation seminars, but we are not busy finishing the work. But now that digitally the whole world is connected with it, so that all countries are actually connected with each other and has done away with borders, it's now become much easier to evangelize. And they saw the merit in cell phone evangelism and were very excited to roll this out immediately as soon as possible. Now, if you look at a few statistics, at the moment, Facebook has very close to 3 billion users. And when WhatsApp was started by Jan Koum, who lost his job at Yahoo, he went to his home, and for 4 months, he wrote this program and launched it 4 months later. And this became a remarkable success, this software called WhatsApp, because of the free telephone calls around the world, etc. It really revolutionized the way that people communicated with each other. In fact, at one stage, I don't know what the latest figures are, but last year, WhatsApp was growing at 560,000 new participants per day, not per week or per month, per day, 500,000 new participants per day. And currently, I was just looking at the figures just now, currently WhatsApp has 3.1 billion users. Really amazing. And approximately 100 billion messages are sent per day using this platform, and 76% of all cell phone users in South Africa use WhatsApp. And there are approximately 2 billion groups on WhatsApp. So it's really a remarkable platform. It's amazing. And Facebook bought this 4 years later from Jan Koum at a very, very high price. For somebody that was unemployed 4 years before, he really did very well for himself. But Facebook saw the potential in communication, in communicating, and adding this to their portfolio of businesses and companies that they own, and it's been a tremendous success. These days, content is king, and cell phone is king. If you want to contact somebody, the best way to contact or get a hold of somebody is through the cell phone. There isn't a better way. In fact, I don't know when last I've been to a bank. Many of us can attest to the same. We use our cell phones and our laptops and our tablets, etc., for banking, for internet, for chatting to somebody, using it as a GPS to find an address, to send and receive messages. It is a camera to receive and make free calls worldwide. The way that we do business has changed completely because of WhatsApp. and WhatsApp are developing other platforms as well that will revolutionize the way that small and large corporations do business and communicate with their staff, etc., etc. So in this modern time, if you want to reach somebody, there isn't a more effective way than reaching him or her on their cell phone. And our cell phones are with us all the time. I'm one of those people that it's on me all the time. In fact, if my cell phone is not with me, I feel totally lost. It's my way of communicating with clients, with friends, etc., all around the world. Just to backtrack slightly, we started a CAM meeting in northern Namibia with this group of 70 people. And for the first 2 or 3 years, since 2013 and 14 and 15 and 16, Neville and I were the speakers at the CAM meeting. But we thought maybe in 2017 or 2016, we should invite somebody from overseas to come and be our guest speaker, which we did. Well, a week before CAM meeting in 2016, the speaker from California phoned us and said, listen, something uncontrollable has happened. I cannot come and be your speaker, but I have a solution. I'm going to send you a chap called Jonathan. Now, we didn't know who Jonathan was. We were very disappointed, but we had to accept. We had no option. Well, we met Jonathan Zirkel, whose father used to be the president of Loma Linda University in California, outside Riverside. And we met Jonathan Zirkel. He's a retired lawyer, about 40 years of age, super wealthy. And he does 1 or 2 cases a year just to remain sharp. But basically, he's given his time to the church. And as a lawyer, he does whatever the church needs to be done, etc., etc. Well, he was our speaker. And he was a remarkable speaker. We really enjoyed Jonathan, and Neville and I became very big friends with Jonathan. And when TMI Central Europe, that's not sort of Germany and France and not Russia in the east, that central part, which is Poland and Armenia, Georgia, etc., that central part was planned for a total member involvement with 4,200 simultaneous evangelistic campaigns per day for a period of 2 weeks. Now, because Jonathan Zirkel knew Neville and myself, and because he was given Armenia and Georgia to actually organize for TMI, and he was aware that there were some South African farmers farming permanently, full-time in Georgia, he thought, well, I know 2 guys from Southern Africa. Let's invite them to come and participate in TMI in Georgia. Well, we were invited. I could not go. Neville went. And Neville, these 4,200 people, mostly non-Adventists, non-ministers, excuse me. They were all Adventists. They were non-ministers. They were ordinary lay people, elders, people in the church pews. All that they had to do is give up 2 weeks of their life, take their laptops with them, and they were given the sermons for the 2-week period on their laptops. And the first day they were trained how to use these sermons. The software that AWR had written, AWR and TMI is the same department at the GC, was remarkable because you read it in your language. So if you are French, you will read the study in your language. Or if you are English, you will read it in your language. But your interpreter standing next to you will read it in his language. And the audience watching it on the screen will see it in their language. So it's really a remarkable system. Cost us quite a packet to have written, but it's a remarkable system, really works very well. And the point is that Neville, when he received these studies, phoned me and said he was so impressed with this Mark Finley Revelation of Hope series that Mark Finley had written and given to the church to use for these TMI meetings around the world. Neville then said, listen, Gideon, when I get back, maybe we should translate these studies into Afrikaans and then approach our group of 72 people on our church group. Well, we weren't a church at that point yet, just our sort of group at that point, and ask them to invite non-Adventist friends to go into their contacts and phone some of their friends and send on maybe a little graphics that we had made and invite them, do you understand the book of Revelation? You will receive one study privately in your phone. You will not be part of a disturbing big group. You will receive this privately in your phone once a week, and each study is broken up into smaller segments. So each study is more or less 6 smaller voice notes of about 7-8 minutes each, which makes up the total study. You receive those 6 voice notes once a week, and you've got 7 days to go through those studies using your own Bible, and then before you receive the second study. Well, 3 days before we wanted to launch our first and send out our first study, we approached our group of 72. We said to them, listen, approach non-Adventists on your phone, contacts on your phone, ask them if they understand the book of Revelation. And we gave them a bit of information on why the book of Revelation was important to understand, etc., etc. That is an end time book. We are living in the end times, and it's not a closed book like the Calvinists believe around the world, and especially in South Africa. It's an open book. We explained all of this to them, and we were amazed because we had 1,300 participants 3 days later. And because WhatsApp groups are limited to 256 persons per group, we had 5.5 groups or 6 groups that these participants were allocated in, and this was done in Afrikaans. So we had Afrikaners from Korea, from South America, a lot from Australia, a lot from New Zealand, a few from North America, many from England, Europe, etc., etc. And most of these people, when we did a survey at the end of the series, were sort of ex-Adventists or lukewarm Adventists, etc., around the world. Well, we were amazed because when we finished the series, 350 people gave their hearts to the Lord and were baptized around the world. Now, that didn't make sense to us. When you send out studies to 1,300 people, and we have such a high, remarkable figure, that didn't make sense to us. I mean, I take my father as an example. I'm a second-generation Adventist, and my father was a full-time evangelist his whole life, and he had 6 pastors working with him, full-time pastors working with him, and they would have 9 months evangelistic campaigns in Alhambra in Cape Town, the Colosseum in Johannesburg, etc. Durban the same, the biggest theater there in the front, I forget what it was called, I think it was the Colosseum, etc. And then they would rent the biggest city halls in Krugersdorp, and that's what they did. Now, if you had to amortize the costs of 6 full-time pastors working with my dad, I remember Chris Buerter was one of them, Chris Venter was another one that worked with my dad full-time as pastors with the evangelistic campaign. And this was the Dead Men Do Tell Tales series. They would work for a month or so in my dad's double garage, printing pamphlets, printing posters, putting this on lampposts, going to churches. Every pastor would go into a different direction on the Sabbath with a whole pack of pamphlets. They would have potluck together at the church, and then after potluck, the whole congregation would go out and hand out these pamphlets, put them behind windscreen wipers, in parking lots, etc., etc., etc. So there was a lot of preparation before the time, and then this 9-month series. I remember that the Alhambra Theatre in Cape Town, I must have been 10 years of age, but the Alhambra Theatre in Cape Town was packed, 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4 sittings on a Sunday. There were no TV in those days. So that was the way that people would come to religious gatherings, because it was advertised as a religious gathering. All shops and everything was closed on a Sunday in those days, because this was a very Calvinistic country at that point. And so people would flock to these evangelistic campaigns, and then next Sunday there'll be a little bit less people. The next Sunday maybe one of those sittings would be less, maybe 3 sittings, maybe 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 2 o'clock. And then eventually they go to a big hall, and then eventually to the church hall. And then after a series like that, which cost about 1.5 million in today's money, with 6 pastors' salaries, plus my father, plus all the printing costs, etc., etc., the advertising costs in newspapers, etc., etc., that's about 1.5 million today. And then they would baptize between 80 and 90 and 100 people, which is phenomenal. But then we spent 1,500 in data, and we baptized 350. This didn't make sense. So what we did is Neville and I drew up a little questionnaire. We sent it to all these 1,300 people that were on our 6-7 groups. And we asked them, and we then realized that these recipients were so enthusiastic about Daniel chapter 2 and realizing that God is in control, etc., etc. And all the other studies, the state of the dead was another one that really impresses people, that they talk to their friends, their relatives, their husbands, their wives, their children, their parents, and say, please, you must receive this. You must listen to the studies. So these people were sending, this 1,300 people were sending this on to an average of 10 other recipients. So we had an audience that we were unaware of 13,000 plus the 1-3. So 14,300, we have no idea how many. Maybe there were 20,000. We had one lady that was sending this on to 22 people. So this was really remarkable. Then the figure of 350 made sense. Well, I tell you, we were amazed, absolutely amazed. And what actually happened is Dwayne McKee was, and his wife, the president of Adventist World Radio, which we had not met at that stage yet, was busy planning a TMI for Zambia. And they were planning to have a couple of evangelistic campaigns in the city of Lusaka and a couple in the smaller sister city of Livingston, where Victoria Waterfalls is. And he was flying a year ahead. What they do is they go a year ahead and they get the congregations and the conferences and the ministers involved with Revelation of Hope seminars, so that the TMI is a harvesting program. So that for the 2 weeks, those sermons would then produce a harvesting group for baptism. But actually, the whole program is a 1-year-long program. And Dwayne McKee and his wife, Kathy, were flying around, organizing this and going back and forth. And when they were finalizing Livingston, they could not find accommodation in the hotel that they always lived in. And eventually, they found a place on the internet, deep in the bush, next to the Zambezi River, upriver. And they thought, well, we have no option. We've got to take this. And they landed, and it was late at night, and this open Land Rover was there. And they got into this Land Rover, and it was a bit nippy. And they thought, well, there's lions and there's elephants here in Zambia. We're feeling very unsafe. And this was a very bumpy dirt road. And they were questioning the Lord, Lord, why did you allow this to happen? Why couldn't we just live in Livingston like we always did? And eventually they got to the receptionist. And there, as they walked in, there was a lady sitting behind the reception, listening to something on a cell phone and smoking a cigarette. And as they got closer to the counter, they noticed this open Bible. But they said nothing. They booked in and went to bed. It was already quite late at night. Next morning after breakfast, when they came to settle their bill, there this lady whose name was Antoinette was sitting, listening once again to her cell phone. The Bible was open and puffing away. And Dwayne was intrigued. He said, listen, Antoinette, what are you listening to? And she said, some chap called Neville. I'm getting a Revelation of Hope studies in the language Afrikaans. That's why Dwayne could not understand what they were listening to. Listening to the series in Afrikaans. This chap Neville, who I don't know who he is, I don't know where he's from, but I'm receiving these studies on the book of Revelation from my cousin in the Cape, who sends it to me every week. Well, Dwayne almost fainted, because it's only the Adventists that propagate and give out studies on the Revelation of Hope, on the book of Revelation. And he got Neville's telephone number, and 3 days later, he phoned Neville and myself. And that's where the relationship between us and Washington started. And Neville was invited 3 months later to go and visit them, etc., etc. It really is remarkable how this actually happens, etc. So, my friend, in the last 2,000 years, from the time that Jesus has walked on this earth till today, you and I have the unique privilege to be part of the first generation that is really in a position to fulfill and finish this work. Digitally, as I said earlier, the whole world is now connected. And if each and every one of you can embrace cell phone evangelism, we will be able to play a big part in finishing this work in a very, very short time. It's very important for us to realize that time is limited. with COVID and 2020, the 26th of March, when lockdown started in this country and around the world, etc., we have become more attuned and more focused to end-time events, and we are all really convinced that we are living at the end of time. So it's very, very important for us to get this ball rolling as quickly as we possibly can. And when I went to Nepal, my territory, by the way, is the whole of Africa, Indonesia, India, and Nepal. Neville does Europe, England, Russia, etc. And then we trained a lady in Northern America that does the States and Canada, and we trained somebody that speaks Spanish who does the Spanish-speaking countries, South America, Mexico, etc., etc. So the four of us have divided the world up into 4 sections. So when I went to Nepal about a year and a half, maybe a little bit more ago, and trained them there for cell phone evangelism, I quickly learned that on the 18th of August, 2018, that was just before I got there, a year before I got there, it became a criminal offense to evangelize using social media. That is the case in Russia, and that will be the case in many countries shortly. So it's vitally important that we start this as soon as we possibly can. We also have seen how they have the cancel policy now, how Trump has been removed from certain platforms and social media by the big tech companies. So things are busy rolling in the wrong direction. The dice will not be falling in our direction or to our benefit always. And this is why approximately 2 years ago, we employed what we would call a professor in this country, a real computer fundi, a chap called Michael Dant. We employed him at AWR. He flew out to Neville and I, and we spent 2 days chatting on strategizing for the next 5 years in the Hilton Hotel in Sandton. We sat there for 2 days with Michael, and what a nice guy, what a knowledgeable person. And he's doing a lot for us. One of the things that he's busy doing is we are writing our own social media so that if the world pulls the rug out from underneath us, then we will be in a position to carry on to evangelize. In the meantime, we need to use WhatsApp. With 3.1 billion active users around the world, that's the one to use. We can also use Signal. You can also use Telegram. They all have their advantages, and they all operate more or less the same. But we're busy writing our own software. In fact, as we speak, there's 5 of us busy testing this at the moment. Michael, Neville, and myself, and 2 others are busy testing this at the moment. It'll be launched shortly. The beauty of this platform is if you're on our Adventist AWR social media platform, you will be able to, without having to be members of any other social media platform, you'll be able to talk to anybody on any other platform. That is unique. So you can talk to people on WhatsApp, you can talk to people on Signal, you can talk to people on Telegram, WeChat, whatever it is. You'll be able to talk to people on any platform around the world. It's a remarkable thing. We've got a few things more to iron out, and then we'll be there. We are also, by the way, just to whisper in your ear, we are seriously considering buying a satellite that is now head office in Washington, so that we can literally be independent and not have somebody like has happened a month ago, that closed down one of the social media platforms just by disallowing them to use their computer systems. So we need to really do our own thing, and we're busy working in that direction. We're busy talking to the right people, and that will happen very, very quickly. We need our own service. It's very important. If one of you would like to know what you should do to get your own laptop, to get your own cell phone, and to get your own server, maybe as a congregation, as a group, or as a conference, talk to me. I've got all the knowledge on that. I'll be able to help you to do exactly that. I can give you a laptop that you order direct from the supplier in the States that will not make you, it's got no Google, no Facebook, no WhatsApp attached to it whatsoever, so nobody can trace you. You'll be absolutely away from all prying eyes. Do you realize that when you walk around the block, Google knows exactly what you're doing? They know your shopping list more or less. So it's really important at the end times here now that we are in to be able to be in a position where you cannot be traced. And this is one of the reasons why I will not take the injection. They called it a vaccine. It's not a vaccine. This is another subject for another time, but I will not take the vaccine because it will progress. I've listened to experts to understand what the plans are behind this smokescreen at the moment. I shared with you my brother's success. He had, at this point, he's now 37 years an elder for one of the biggest Afrikaans churches in South Africa, Philadelphia and in Pretoria. At that stage, 4 years ago, he was an elder for 33 years with no baptisms to his credit. And he basically said, Gideon, maybe I should resign as an elder because when I look at the audience in the church, there's nobody there because I'm an elder. And at that point, I just started recording the Revelation of Hope studies for the World Church. And I gave him a CD with one or two that we had already got. I just happened to have it on me in my motor car, and I gave it to him. And I said to him, listen to this. I have an idea. Phone me tomorrow, which he did. I then said to him, Marius, do me a favor, go to your phone and try and contact 10 or 20 non-Adventists and say to them, do you understand the book of Revelation? Well, he went and approached 10 in a period of 2 or 3 days, and one said no, he's not interested in religion at all, and 9 said yes, they want to know more about the book of Revelation, and gave Marius permission to send them the first study on the Revelation of Hope series. So Marius, on the 29th of September 2017, started one WhatsApp group with 9 participants. And the next week, he received a few requests. Please add my brother, add my mother, add my colleague, add my boss, etc. Add my children to also receive these magnificent studies. So now, because the first group has already had the first or the second study, you can't add them to the first group. You've got to start a new group. So it was amazing how he every week started a new group. And when I interviewed him for AWR 5 weeks later, the end of October 2017, he had 5 groups with 192 participants on these 5 groups. Now, if we fast forward this to this last weekend, when I asked Marius for his latest figures, up till now, in the last 41 months, he has sent out 254,176 studies. That's an average of 1,549 studies per week. Wow. Now, Marius is not a theologian. He has his own business doing security for people in shopping centers, electric fences to keep their sun panels safe. That's on the roofs of these shopping centers. That's what he does. He's not an ordained minister, but he is so successful as a cell-phone evangelist. And we have about 60,000 cell-phone evangelists that Neville and I have trained around the world at the moment. And he's one of our most successful. We have a few in this category, but he's one of those few. He is so successful to make this more practical for you to understand how successful Marius is. If one pastor does one study face-to-face per day for 6 days a week, for 48 weeks for the year, it'll take that pastor 883 years to do what Marius has done in 41 months. That's 3.4 months. And he did that in the comfort of his home. Now, when I did this presentation to one of our other conferences, they had as a conference 69 pastors. Now, if you take that conference with 69 pastors, at one pastor doing 6 studies per week, that's one a day for 6 days a week, for 48 days, for 48 weeks a year, it would take the conference 12.8 years to do what Marius has done in 41 months. And Marius has had dozens of baptisms worldwide. His first baptism was his eldest son, who was a drug addict, who came off everything and gave his heart to the Lord And that was Marius's first baptism. It was really amazing. He's had dozens since. Now, many of you are potential Mariuses. All that you need to do is the right training and the right support group within which you can operate as a cell phone evangelist. And tomorrow afternoon, I will get to that point where I will be able to give you the training and to give you the structure of a group within which you can operate successfully. So if it's possible that you can approach 10 people personally or 20 people personally that are on your cell phone, that are non-Adventists, and ask them very clearly, do you understand the book of Revelation? And most people will say no. Then some people will say to you, but it's a closed book, we don't need to understand it. And I will share with you tomorrow how you should approach those people to get them to say, yes, I want to receive the Revelation of Hope studies. So how this works is after tomorrow, you will receive a link. And on that link will be the 29 recorded Revelation of Hope studies. And you will receive the list of how to do this. I will be discussing most of that tomorrow afternoon. And that will then put you in a position. You don't have to do any recording. It's already been done. In fact, we're around 60, 70 languages, like German is done, etc. French is done. English and Afrikaans is done. We're busy with Zulu, I think, at the moment. We're busy with Shona at the moment, which is a very large. We're busy finalizing Swahili. Swahili is the biggest spoken language in Africa. When I trained in Tanzania, then we got a retired CA to actually do the translation. I gave him all the scripts, and he's done that. We're busy with the recordings at the moment. I would like to take you to Testimonies, Volume 9, page 117. Testimonies, Volume 9, page 117. The work of God in this earth can never be finished until the men and women comprising our church membership rally to the work and unite their efforts with those of ministers and church officers. You know, in South America, we discovered that some ministers have up to 40 congregations, 40. In this country, we have pastors with 14, 15 congregations. Most of our pastors have 3 or 4 or 5 congregations, depending on the size of the congregation. So it becomes impossible for the pastors to do evangelistic work. But if you can unite your talents and your time with the efforts of the ministers, then we can actually finish this work. Now, the context for the next quote I would like to share with you, and that's Acts of the Apostles, page 110. The context here is Matthew 28. Not upon the ordained minister only rests the responsibility of going forth to fulfill this commission. It is a fatal mistake to suppose that the work of soul saving depends alone upon the ordained ministry. God will send forth into his vineyard many who have not been dedicated to the ministry by the laying on of hands. So what she's saying here, many who have not been ordained will be the ones who will be saving the souls. So she says it's a fatal mistake that you think that evangelism solely rests on the minister's shoulders. It's the normal member that will finish the work. So it's your duty and my duty to get involved and finish this work. Evangelism, page 48. We are nearing the close of this earth's history. We have before us a great work, the closing work of giving the last warning message to a sinful world. There are men who will be taken from the plow, from the vineyard, from various branches of work, and sent forth by the Lord to give this message to the world. Now, when she says the plow, from the vineyard, various branches, those are plumbers, those are electricians, those are bookkeepers, those are chartered accountants. Those are people from every walk of life, ordinary men and women, will be given the means to finish this work. Evangelism, page 48. So Matthew 28, verses 19 and 20, it's possibly one of the most well-known portions of the Bible. Go ye therefore and make disciples and teach them. Those are the two things that you have been commissioned to do in Matthew 28. And it carries the concept that you are entrusted with, you are equipped, you are commissioned to react, you are to be active in service, you are to teach others and make them disciples and teach them the things that God has taught you. And then a very excellent quote from Testimonies, Volume 7, page 26. God will move upon men in humble positions to declare the message of present truth. And the beauty of the system, my friend, is you don't need any theological knowledge to be able to become the most successful cell phone evangelist possible, because everything has been pre-recorded for you. We will teach you how to do it, how to use it, etc., etc. I had the privilege to train Mark Finley's church, and Mark and his wife Tini were there as well. And at the end of the training, he got up and he said, this is the greatest and the most effective evangelism tool he's ever discovered. And he implemented it immediately in his congregation in Northern Virginia. Pastor Ted Wilson said, this is the last frontier to cross. Cell phone evangelism is the way forward. And I have a video clip which will be on that link that I will give you after tomorrow's training, that you will see what Pastor Ted Wilson has to say there. You know, the important point as well that I would like to share with you is that every day, approximately 100 people go onto social media with a specific task of looking for answers for questions that they have. So it's very, very important that you and I are there. 100 million. Now, we've got 7.8 billion people on this globe. Every day, 100 million, that's an astronomical figure. Go onto social media, onto Google, onto some search engine, and they type in a question that needs a religious answer. Where are you? Where is Advent Hope Online? Where is our congregation? Where is our local conference, our local union, our division, our world church? Are we there? Now, we've spent millions reorganizing Adventist.org. It's now a magnificent site, and I'll be talking about that tomorrow as well. I would like to actually go onto here and share a PowerPoint with you for my next portion of my presentation. Right. Turning point. Worldwide, the Adventist Church is at a turning point right now, where we are in this point in history. And I would like to share a quote with you, which is absolutely a remarkable quote. I'm just trying to get my mouse to work correctly. Where are we? There. Sorry. I can't see my mouse. Let's see if it works with that system. Oh, there we are. Okay, there we are. Let every worker in the master's vineyard study, plan, and devise methods to reach people where they are. We must do something out of the common course of things. We must arrest attention. We must be deadly in earnest. That is evangelism, page 122. So here Ellen White says, you and I need to study and plan and devise new innovative methods. She never knew of the word cell phone or digital technology in those days. You and I need to do that which is different to what we did in the past. We need to increase innovation. It must arrest the attention, and we need to move fast. That's a remarkable quote, really remarkable. If we go to the next one, she says here in Evangelism, page 206, let the workers of God manifest tact and talent and originate devices by which to communicate light to those who are near and to those who are far off. Originate devices that can communicate. If she knew about cell phones, she would have used those words. I'm convinced that was written for today. So you and I need to use our God-given talents to communicate, to learn how to communicate Bible truths with new devices, with new technology. You and I are encouraged to discover and develop and use these new devices to reach the unreachables. That's really a remarkable statement. If we go to the next one, God will guide his messengers in the adoption of new methods to arrest the attention of men and convince their judgment. He will give skill and understanding in the use of effective illustrations to arrest the attention of people. The Gospel Herald, 1901, December 1. My goodness, new methods to arrest the attention of men. Skill and understanding to get personal. So you and I are once again encouraged to use, discover, and learn to use these new methods that will impact and grab the attention of others and cause them to make decisions for truth. And God will supply the skill and God will supply the understanding tomorrow for you to be able to use these new technologies. This is a wow statement. And this was penned like 120 years ago by a Form 3 school dropout. Really amazing. Now I want to take you to Isaiah, a book that one of my favorite Bible books. I love the book of Isaiah. In fact, I'm busy writing a sort of a commentary on the book of Isaiah at the moment. Whenever I get time, an hour a day or so at the moment. And after this quarter's Sabbath school lessons, I will actually print that book and have it available. But I love Isaiah. Man, what a book. Isaiah 43, one that we studied this week. Remember ye not the former things, neither consider the things of old. I will do a new thing. Look at the yellow on your screen. I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth, and ye shall know it. I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. This is amazing. Now, Isaiah wrote this approximately 2,712 years ago. Forget the old ways. I will cause new methods of evangelism. This is what she's saying. It will be miraculous, like a new river in the wilderness. Can you imagine an Amazon river running through Howick, 20 kilometers wide? This is what Isaiah wrote 2,700 odd years ago. It will be miraculous like a new river, like an Amazon river running through Howick. It'll be something not possible before. And Isaiah wrote this portion for 2021 for you and I this evening. I will do a new thing. Cell phone evangelism, digital technology. It'll make a way in the wilderness as like a river. That's really amazing. Now let's go to at the bottom of this same on your screen. Look at Romans 9 verses 5 to 28. I'm just going to read the yellow portions. I will call them my people, which were not my people. So my friends, there are Catholics, there are atheists, there are Methodists, there are all colors of people, all races, all nationalities around the world that are not God's people now, which will become God's people. They shall be called the children of the living God. Then verse 28, for he will finish the work and cut it short in righteousness, because a short work will the Lord make upon the earth. My friend, Paul wrote this 1,963 years ago. For today, he's actually saying that there will be people joining the Adventist community that are not Adventists at the moment, and they will become children of God. And God will finish this work using new technologies. He'll cut it short. He'll make a quick work of it. This text is very, very clear. So do you sense that things from now on will move fast? Are you also now convinced, as I am, that God will shorten his work? Are you also convinced that we're living in the end times? That within years, short years, the second coming, that trumpet will sound. The second coming will be here. Do you sense the urgency? So these writers, Ellen White, Isaiah, Paul, are saying it's wise to move forward with new methods. Do you realize that the time that it takes to use an old evangelistic method, that same time employed using digital modern technology with modern instruments and tools, you can reach 100, even 1,000-fold more people than the same time using old methodologies. So you are commissioned to move with new ways of evangelism. And your efforts combined with God's will be like a mighty new Amazon river, like running through the center of Natal. So you and I are encouraged to discover and develop and use these new devices to make these things happen. Now, I'm going to share with you one of the biggest companies in the world. The Chief Innovations Officer made this statement. We need to increase innovation. We need to move faster. By the way, let me take you there. Yeah, we need to increase innovation. We need to move faster. We need to stay connected. We need to get personal. Now, before I tell you who made this statement of one of the biggest companies on the stock exchanges around the world, the yellow is Ellen White's statement. And 120 odd years ago, she said we need to devise new methods. We need to arrest the attention. We need to communicate. We need to convince. It's exactly what this person, Clifford DeWitt, the Chief Innovations Officer at Microsoft, has stated. And Ellen White made this statement many, many years ago, before the mighty Microsoft. My friend, we're living in exciting times, and this is reality. I've got twin daughters studying medicine. They're in their third year at the moment. And the one lives upstairs in the flat that I've rented for them in Pretoria, another one downstairs. But it's more convenient to talk on WhatsApp with each other than running up and down the stairs. Have you sat in restaurants and watched people's families sitting around the table, and the father's on his phone and the son is on his phone, and they're not communicating with each other? They're doing their own thing on their phones. We're sitting with a situation where there's tablets and cell phones, and this is reality. And since 2018, 2019, people want less face-to-face communication. They want to do their own thing and do their own, and this is what the world looks like today. People want less face-to-face communication. And for us to be able to break through to those people, you and I need to be able to speak the language cell phone needs. You know, the way that this new generation is growing up is remarkably different to the way that you and I grew up, possibly. If you are my age, you grew up totally different. If you are as old as Frank, you would have really grown up different. I'm glad none of us are as old as Frank this evening. But in any case, you find that people's attention span is around 11, 12, 13 seconds. But today's kids have an attention span of 8 seconds, the way that they grow up with technology. Have you watched children? I watch my daughters. If they go onto a search engine, if they don't find anything within 5 or 6 or 7 seconds, they drop it and go to another platform. And their fingers move faster than what your eyes can follow. It really is remarkable. And a goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds, longer than the modern kids, the way that they're growing up today. So in today's tech-savvy world that we're living in, these tech-savvy users desire less face-to-face communication. They want to communicate using technology platforms of their choice. It could be WhatsApp, it could be Viber, it could be Line, it could be WeChat, it could be Telegram, it could be Signal, it could be anything. Really amazing. One of the biggest corporations in the States is Ray's Corp. And Alan Ray's, the Chief Executive Officer, made a statement which is so spot on. Digital and social trends changes the way in which we consume content. Digital and social trends changes the way in which we consume content. So today's users use tablets or their smartphone or their laptops or their desktop computers for information. Where do you go to? Do you go to a library? I don't know if people still go to libraries. I mean, if I want something, everything is on the internet. But now what about tomorrow? There are 4 new developing trends that will completely change the way that we consume content within a year or 2. And remember, my friend, content is king. Content is king. The first one is immersion. The era of affordable virtual reality is upon us, which means that you are now able to do anything from watch once in a lifetime concert from your living room, or you could sit in your study on your leather wingback, and you can actually test the latest sports car around Monte Carlo from the comfort of your wingback. This is immersion. This is the new thing on the way. It's already here. And by the end of next year, like 2022, they anticipate about 350 to 400 million virtual reality headsets will be sold, creating a global market of about $70–80 billion. So immersion is a new trend where people become more immersed through the new technology. The second one is interactivity. Computer science and artificial intelligence laboratories are now developing interactive dynamic video, IDV, interactive dynamic video. This is a technology which would allow consumers to instantaneously purchase products that they see featured in a virtual reality ad or films with just a flick of a wrist. Content will quickly become a two-way street with the ability to recognize facial expressions and emotions, and content will adapt and react in real time to create engaging and interactive experiences. Now, can you visualize evangelizing with this dynamic interactivity using your computer that recognizes your participants in the revelation of hope's facial expression and his emotions, and you can then, by the press of a button, do a call and he can react at the flick of the wrist. This is in the near future, my friend. Then ultra-personalization. Ultra-personalization means, have you noticed the adverts on Facebook on the right-hand side of your Facebook page? The system remembers wherever you go, wherever you click. Google, Facebook are famous for that. And you will receive adverts that is your taste. So in other words, you will not receive an advert for mountain hiking, but I will, because that's what I love doing. Or hiking difficult mountain areas like in the Drakensberg. I did a 5-day hike there 2 years ago called Giant's Cup from Sarnie's Pass, 5 days down to Bushman's Neck. What a magnificent part of the world. But because I'm on the internet looking for hikes to do over weekends and maybe 3 days and 4 days and 5-day hikes and 10-day hikes, etc., that I did in Namibia and through one of the game parks up in Africa, I will receive those adverts. So these adverts are personalized. The AI remembers wherever you go to. So advertisements on Facebook, as an example, are based on your interests. And your correspondence, they address you now by name rather than the vague valued customer like in the past. So content that you will receive will adapt to create an ultra personalized experience for you as an individual, factoring in everything from personality to your location, wherever you live. So deep learning engines are calculating and present content that appeals to you and maximizing its effectiveness and engagement with you, etc., etc. It's really amazing. Now, can you imagine targeting those who are interested in religion and those who have a religious-related question? I mentioned earlier that every day, 100 million people on average go onto the internet to look for an answer to their questions, a problem that they have in their lives. Where are we? And this is why we employed Michael Dant, this professor that's now working for us for the last 2 years. We are busy with all of these things I've just mentioned, just sharing with you. Then the last one is curation. The last one is curation. Curation is, by the end of next year, consumers will be able to interact with their favorite brands through almost any device. Your smartphone is becoming a very powerful device. um, your laptop, your tablet, etc., your desktop computers, and brands will focus on crafting and sharing quality content to pull customers in rather than shoving annoying advertisements in the face of their audiences. So the Internet of Things will grow to greatly influence content curation. So with the entire constellation of devices communicating with each other, analytics platforms will use vast amounts of user data to identify your behavior patterns based on everything from your weekly grocery shopping list, your daily exercise activity, etc. As your environments grow and become more intelligent than your individual devices, these will create seamless streams of rich data. By simply walking down the street, they will know it and collect that information. So patterns and trends and unique insight about you will emerge from this data and will be used to ensure content is personalized to every person in every possible way. And as we edge closer to 2022, we can only expect content to play more of an integral role in the lives of consumers and brands alike. And coupled with emerging technologies and ever-growing pool of consumer data to draw from, the opportunity for brands and publishers to capitalize on content is huge. And ultimately, if we as a church, a worldwide church, can leverage these content trends in a very smart and an effective way, we can then devise content and evangelistic thrusts that will be useful and successful as we enter the beginning of next year. My friend, once again, today's world, content is king. And you and I must soon employ immersive technologies. Soon we need to adjust and evangelize with a new dynamic interactivity. And our evangelism computer systems must recognize facial expressions and emotions and get participants to react on our calls with a flick of a wrist. We need to adopt and create ultra-personalized experiences for participants individually. And we as a church need to focus on crafting and sharing quality content to pull customers in, to pull consumers in. Yes, my friend, the potency and the efficacy of traditional evangelism must now come under scrutiny, and our relationship with digital technology and its instant content platform must be unfolded and developed. And this approach will present and open evangelistic avenues with the unmissable opportunity to connect with audiences and participants like never before has ever happened, and will then lead to baptism. My friend, it's very important. We are at a turning point as a worldwide church, as a division, the SID, as a union in Bloemfontein, as a conference in Natal, as a church member attached to this group. You and I are at a turning point. It's important that you and I become aware of these social and new digital trends and new developments, and that we stay abreast with them. And only then can we plan how to compete in this digital environment to spread the everlasting gospel and come up with a model of evangelism that works. This is the turning point. The turning point is basically three things. And that is cell phone evangelism. You can see at the bottom of your screen, cell phone evangelism. We're going to talk about that tomorrow and train you tomorrow. The second one is the Center of Digital Evangelism. We're building 10 of these around the world. The first one in the Philippines is complete. The second one, I think we're laying the bricks next week in Pretoria. That's number 2. There'll be one in South America, one in England, one in Europe, one in North America, 10 around the world. Now, those are going to be very, very sharp and highly trained individuals working in the CDEs, the Center of Digital Evangelism, which is technically a call center. We spent a couple of $100,000 revamping Adventist.org, because in the past, If you wanted to find out about the state of the dead and you went to adventist.org, it was a dead-end street. Now it will lead you to a CDE where you can actually then somebody will pick up the phone on the other side, talk your language, make friends with you, pray with you, answer your question. That 100 million a day that go onto the worldwide internet to ask for questions, we are now making ourselves more visible and available for them. This is specifically the thrust that we planned the last 2.5 years. We're spending millions on building these 10 centers. And number 2 is in Pretoria, which the first brick will be laid, I think, next week. Then the digital church, it's very important. And this is why I was so encouraged and enthusiastic when I learned of Advent Hope Online. What a magnificent insight 1 or 2 or 20 of you had to start this group. This is the way forward. I spoke to Mark Finley last week. His words were, the end of church is in sight. The end of normal church is in sight. Digital church is the way forward, my friend. That's the way to go. So we need to enhance what you're doing. And with experts like Cliff and his wife, Sherilyn, they will help you to really get this more effective and rolling out, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the turning point that we are at as individuals. Cell phone evangelism, centers of digital evangelism that you will feed as well and become a vibrant digital church for the future. My friend, your digital church must have a Sabbath opening like you do. It must have a Sabbath pre-program. It must have a lesson discussion. It must have a Sabbath divine service like you do. It must have an afternoon service for the kids or a morning service for the kids. You must concentrate on the youth. Very, very important. Even if it's a half an hour long, but you must have something for the youth. Maybe you do. You must have a prayer meeting once a week. You must have a question and answer session once a month or so. You need to close Sabbath as well. Very, very important that you have a complete digital church. Those are the things I've just mentioned and shared with you. My friend, whatever you do as a group of people belonging to this Advent Hope Online group, or what you do as an individual, from tonight onwards, must lead to baptism. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. It's vitally important. Whatever you do leads to baptism. I'll be focusing more on this tomorrow. Once again, Matthew 28, go and make disciples and teach them. That is your commission. That's what you have to do. Today, in this digital age, you need to be able to speak cell phonese so that you will be able to break through and be able to be heard. You and I need to plan and study and devise new innovative methods. We need to use those new innovative methods, this new technology. You and I need to do that which is different to what we did in the past. We need to increase innovation. It must arrest their attention. We need to move fast. That's Ellen White. You and I need to use our God-given talents to communicate the Bible truths with new devices. You and I are encouraged to discover and develop these new devices to reach the unreachables. We need to use new methods that will impact and grab the attention of others, that will cause others to make decisions for truth. God has already supplied the skill. God has already put all the digital technology around the world, 2,600 satellites, static around the world, 140 kilometers above the crust of the earth, making us one massive community. No more borders, no more walls separating us. God has supplied that technology. And tomorrow you will have the understanding and how to use. This is wow, my friend. Ellen White penned those words approximately 120, 130 years ago. And that same God that gave Daniel that futuristic dream made this clear to Ellen White. She was a Form 3 school dropout. And your efforts, combined with God's, will be like a mighty Amazon River, 20 kilometers wide, running through Natal. Something magic is going to happen to this group. And you are invited tonight to join us tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock And you are encouraged to phone at least 5 other Adventists, even if they're not from this congregation, to join you tomorrow with the Zoom training tomorrow from 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock. It's a 3-hour session. There'll be 2 5-minute breaks in between the 3 sessions. So please, you will then learn and you will discover and use and learn how to develop and how to use these new methods and new technology. So my friend, whatever you do from now on must be the most effective available in the world. Church is not the same anymore. It will not be the same anymore. In fact, I'm one of the few that's busy talking specifically to my leadership at the GC. I believe that we should sell every church we own, every building that we own around the world, because it's the end. We should take that money and move with this evangelistic campaign, with this methodology forward. So God can do that miracle like a mighty Amazon river running through your area, 20 kilometers, 30, 50 kilometers wide. Desire of Ages 584. No one can live the law of God. Let's love God and love your fellow men without ministering to others. That's a very hard statement. My favorite book, Desire of Ages 584. No one can live the law of God without ministering to others. My friend, you are here this evening because you have a passion for souls. You are here this evening because you want to learn to use the latest new technologies to be able to be an effective self and evangelist like my brother, doing a minister's work that he will do in 883 years. He does in 41 months. You will be in exactly the same position. This is a powerful instrument. Powerful instrument. So it's vitally important that you join us tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Let us bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for every person here this evening that's willing to learn how to use the latest technologies to be vitally effective in these end times. Lord, we look forward to that sound of that trumpet as it cracks open the sky. As we look up and we see you coming down, surrounded with billions of angels. Lord, we look forward to that day. But in the meantime, use us so we can hasten that coming, so that we will be able to stand firm. Lord, we know that the more we reach out, the more we actually service ourselves spiritually. Thank you for this privilege. Thank you for every person here this evening. And be with us as we worship further tomorrow morning as a group with Sabbath school, with divine service, and then the afternoon training program from 4 o'clock till 7 o'clock. This is a humble prayer that we pray in your name. Amen.